How do homeowners on the shore handle hurricane and storm preparation?
How do they? They don't. um, I think I would say the one fortunate thing is, we're more susceptible to like nor'easters, um, full moon, high tides, things to that nature. Yes, 12 years ago, did we have Hurricane Sandy and properties were devastated? 100%. I'm not going to dismiss that. People's lives were ruined, and that's awful. Um, 12 years later, we still haven't had a hurricane. If you go into the Carolinas, Florida, they have five, six a year. So it can be, we're certainly in that trajectory. We get a lot of different weather at the Jersey Shore. I mean, like I said, you are susceptible to hurricanes. You're susceptible to nor'easters. You're just susceptible to nor'easters that come in with a full moon, high tides, and it can be devastating. And it really becomes a matter of you should always be paying attention to your town emergency systems that are in place. Number one, that's first and foremost. And I think other things that you start to look at are, what are your access roads? As far as the emergency roads and things like that to get in and out. What are those like? If you're going to have snow removal and things like that, what streets are you allowed to park on? What streets you're not allowed to park on? If we're going to be we've got a storm coming that's going to be during high tides and there's potential for very high flooding, what are the spots that I can move my car? And I've been doing this a long time. I talk to people and they'll be like, 1 minute it's they know it's coming and they're slow with getting down to move their car, and literally in minutes. I remember talking to one guy. He was in a certain section, and he was saying to me, I was getting ready to go down and move my car. I took the dog out, and by the time I got back with taking the dog out, I had already lost my car. I mean, what's that? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? You're taking your dog out, and so I think that your spots. I mean, there are just certain spots that they're susceptible to high tides, to flooding. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's getting ready. It's just knowing your area, knowing where you're purchasing, and look to get ready for it. If you're not here year round anyways, and you live, you have decks and things like that, your patio furniture, that kind of stuff, that should be in your, unless it's bolted down, like that kind of stuff more than likely should be in your unit. Because you're not necessarily even leaving yourself open for your property to be damaged, but your neighboring properties as well. So I think it's not so much being prepared for it. It's knowing where you are. Again, listening to the town's emergency systems when those do go into action, and preparing yourself, whether it's a vehicle, outside stuff, outside furniture and things like that.
If there was a big storm, how do you think it would affect the market? Like, do you think people would suddenly have more hesitation for a few months and then they'd recover?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say it, is that there's always that dip, like, oh my God, I'm never gonna buy down there. At the end of the day, though, it's weather, and you always have weather. So if you're going to purchase a property at the shore, at the beach, you know that you're on the water. So or you're within certain proximity to the bay, certain proximity to the beach, and then it's you know your property at some point it could be in danger. Um, it's not to say that it is. I mean, there can you get to an extreme? Sure, we're on New Jersey Avenue. We'll take that for example. We're on New Jersey Avenue, and if the where we are, if this building got flooded, there are a tremendous amount of more urgent situations that need to be taken care of besides this building being flooded. I mean, we are literally 5 blocks from the ocean, and we're probably 4 blocks from. I mean, we're in the middle of the island, and if that would have happened, it's a catastrophic event. It's the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, the whole like state would be underwater.
Yeah,
Basically.
it's just so some but with that said, it's you always have to be willing, and you have to be open. When you are dealing with people that are purchasing at the shore for the first time, those are going to be questions that you get because they don't know, and that's okay. If I was purchasing in California, I would have a bunch of questions about the earthquakes, and I might be looking in California. Not that I ever would do that, but that is not even susceptible to earthquakes. But it would be something that I would be asking about because I don't know any better. So someone that's coming to the shore that maybe has never owned here before, those are going to be questions that they have, and you have to be able to answer those for them, and just realize that it's just a concern.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So what would you say if you had 10 seconds to talk to someone who just was worried that the storms were holding them back from buying a property? Your elevator pitch to them.
My elevator pitch to them. I'm worried about storms, and I wouldn't buy. Well, I guess at the end of the day, it becomes, if you're that worried about storms, then don't buy at the shore. But if I'm looking at it from a perspective of what's the chances of a storm actually destroying what you're going to be purchasing? The shore's been here for over 100 years, 200 years, and we're still here. We'll be here in another 100 years, 200 years.
Yeah.
And someone today, not every building was destroyed in Sandy.
Yeah.
And that was 12 years ago.
And it was like the worst one in a really long time.
I mean, you can call it a 100-year storm. There are some people that will say to you that Jonas, which was a nor'easter that came in January, was worse for them. I mean, it just happened to be right after Sandy. Sandy was, October 2012, and Jonas came in January, and that was worse for some people. And they have,
yeah,
they were in areas that they do get water, and they know it. So it's not like they were surprised that had their house for 20 years. And I remember one lady showing me that this was the water level in my house for Sandy, and this was Jonas, and yet there was no play on Jonas.
Yeah.
People would be like, Jonas, what the hell were you talking about? And then,
yeah,
it was the name of because the Weather Channel names their storms, and that was the storm that rolled through here in January. And for some people, it was worse.
Interesting.